lockdown also happening, and that is the mental lockdown. As many as 12.2 crore Indians have lost their job, maybe even more. Many entrepreneurs have closed their businesses. Financial losses, disruption in everything, the uncertainty of a future unknown. These mental stressors are creating large pools of stress and well-being issues. We would like Dr. Nagpal to please help us to grapple with some of these issues. And before we start, I want to introduce to the very few who won't know him already. Dr. Nagpal, Dr. Jitendra Nagpal, is a senior consultant psychiatrist and in charge Institute of Mental Health and Life Skills Promotion, Mulchand MedCity, New Delhi. He is also the program director, Expressions India, the National Life Skills Community and School Wellness Program. Dr. Nagpal has been on the services planning, training groups, and on board with many committees under the MHRD, MOHFW, Ministry of WCD, Social Justice, CBSE, NCERT, and UGS. He has developed various programs and training manuals under the MHRD for school-based implementation of health, safety, and well-being programs. He has been instrumental in developing the health and physical education curriculum for the National Curriculum Framework of NCERT. As Dr. Nagpal shared with me a little earlier, unexpected, sudden, unanticipated COVID-19 has brought shock to the entire world. The COVID-19 pandemic has intensively affected human life, and mental health and well-being have been impacted in a manner unprecedented. We need to be prepared to cope with the changing realities. Dr. Nagpal, with your help, we will try to bridge this gap today under anxiously yours, because we will talk today about the most common issue facing us today, in fact, several times in a day, that is anxiety and the uncertainty of unknown. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. Dr. Nagpal, do talk to me about how do we cope with the uncertainty, the stress, the anxiety.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kamalji. I think it is a very deep privilege and the honor for me to be on this dialogue with you. And more so because I think it's a moment, it is a pandemic which has taken the world by shock and surprise. And as you said rightly, the manifestation of the pandemic has been going beyond the calamities and the disaster that we have all been watching for the last about 4 months. Now, what are these? What are these momentary happenings which are actually accumulating? Isn't it? We are coming across so much of a newer form of onslaught. To that point, a newer pandemic. I am cognizant of the fact, because when we come across daily, lots of people calling on telephone, wanting to discuss, some wanting to share their panic, as you said, anxiety. We are gradually realizing, and probably we are learning. Moreover, we are learning that the mental health pandemic is not running parallel. It has already started taking over. One, because a lot of global viewpoint is happening, because any chronic, sustained disaster, it is chronic now, okay? And we don't have a prediction, by the way. We don't have a prediction that it will be mitigating in the near future. It may be controlled. We may soon have a vaccine, but the fact that the human life and the human livelihood, you said rightly about the employment part, you know, the service sector and the livelihood part, both are at stake. People are grappling with the idea of survival, and sometimes to the point of being very phobic about it, that what is going to happen. uncertainty remains the stressor number one by all calculation. So what happens in a situation like this? The disaster is taking a chronic proportion. The pandemic by COVID-19 has shown progressively, geometrically rising numbers in India. Day-to-day data shows 20 plus thousand infections going up. Well, that is a fact. And today or tomorrow, more than yesterday, the earlier the better we start accepting this as a reality and start living with it. जिसको कहते हैं हम कि अब कोरोना के साथ रहना सीखना है हमने क्योंकि कोरोना का जमाना है. So the mindset is the question right now. While we are doing our best, we should. There is no negotiation on the fact that safety is important, security is important, but mind as a component of good health has to take over the anxiety and the fear. And anxiety as a symptom, anxiety as a day-to-day necessity for survival. And then the third part, the anxiety as a disorder. We have started seeing the second two parts more often nowadays in the last about 2 months than any time in the previous times. So anxiety as a symptom and anxiety as a disorder gradually is taking shape in even in the most, the strongest people we come across. They say that, yes, I am pretty strong, I am resilient, I'm able to manage my day-to-day life. But today I don't know. I seem to be choking, suffocating, palpitations, and so on. I mean, the symptoms can go on and on. The question remains, Kamalji, that are we ready to discourse, have a dialogue in the family, in society about mental health as a component of good health? That is the main question. Then the anxiety as a manifestation of the mental health spectrum or the problems probably will gain importance in a dialogue, in a discussion. But it is there. 150 million people need mental health help in India. Minimum, I'm saying. Only about 30 million are supposed to be able to procure it or get it or somehow get the right time intervention through professionals. But here the question is not about tertiary care, the mental health professional available. It's about how we can manage it ourselves, how the family can help, friends can help, schools can help, workplace can be a help. So broadly, I'm trying to tell you that anxiety has come to stay during the COVID-19 in large proportions and magnitude. It is up to recognize it, to accept it, to get necessary help within the community for it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nagpal. That helps at least to put it in perspective.
Yeah, ma'am. Exactly.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to discuss with you is that while in the US, for example, or the European countries, the more developed countries, it is well acknowledged that anxiety and depression can lead to a whole lot of other problems. I feel in India, it is still considered taboo. And people are often not open to sharing anxiety issues.
I think you're touching a very sensitive chord, Kamalji, and this has been a larger malaise and malady than mental health problems. The stigma, the curse of the mind, as they call it. And the beautiful mind has its own spectrum, has its own beautiful ways to manifest. But when it is anxious, it is more than necessary anxiety. I said a symptom of anxiety or a disorder. More often than not, the first particular strategy is to be defensive about it and hide it, suppress it, deny it. You can imagine what would happen when there is a nervousness, there is a feeling of choking or high degree of palpitations happening for whatever reason it may be. It could be a very menial argument in the family. It could be about not being able to reach the office or probably anticipating a loss in job, as we are hearing so common nowadays. The cut down in the salaries and the closure of the startups of young people, and so many stories which we are hearing. More than 25 million jobs at stake, almost. In the US, it has crossed 30 million. We are trying to estimate the ones in India. So anxiety as a way of life, because the COVID-19 has brought in a way of life. The new normal is about to happen. It has happened to some extent, but as we are trying to adapt, I think it is time to even look at, is anxiety so much a part of life that should we carry the stigma to even hide it? Should we carry the hesitation, the reluctancy, and maybe a degree of apprehension to subdue it? That is the major illness. The inability or the lack of capacity to connect with the people who matter for me about my own anxiety. And I think if that is a community awareness in India, which is picking up very well, we are able to see that the stigma is coming down. We are able to see that the mysteriousness of the mind, that it is a creation of the powers beyond our control, and it is scientific. The brain undergoes changes. There are neurochemicals, there are neural networks which undergo changes to manifest anxiety. It is a scientific wisdom. The more we accept this, I think people will come forward. And as you said rightly, Kamalji, the stigma and the discrimination and maybe the ostracism associated with the level of mental health difficulties related to anxiety would be more communicating, collaborating, and cooperating within the family and the society.
Right. Thank you. I wanted to also touch upon another problem. How do we understand that the uncomfortable feeling that we might be having is anxiety? How does one actually understand that this is a problem? Because, generically you think that this is emotional overload. Normally you think you will get it over with, or you just feel it is a restlessness and, this is something that you can manage. So how do you understand that, yes, you have a problem or that you have anxiety? How does one understand that?
Very interesting question. I think I'll try to maybe decode the question with respect to the body and the mind relationship. Aren't we all highly motivated on a daily basis, right from childhood, isn't it? Going to school, completing a task, come back home, play, enjoy the joy of living in the school, at the playground, in the home, studies and entertainment, go back to sleep and get up in the morning. Well, the journey starts at childhood itself, isn't it? Same thing now. The degree of stimulation is required. You may call it stress is required. It is important. There is something called a happy stress or a good stress in life also. If that is not there, I think humanity may not even be feeling adequate. So a degree of motivational stress is required. It is mandatory for authentic movement in life and trying to even achieve your goals also, right? What happens is when the feeling of anxiety is overwhelming a person, nowadays what we come across is that part. It is taking the control of the person. Anxiety becomes a personality problem also sometimes, and people start feeling that, well, I could able to earlier manage this much anxiety. I was having palpitations while always getting late for my office, and I would feel a little nervous going and meeting my boss in the workplace or in my board meetings. A little bit of a shakiness, a little bit of trembling, which I think is so nominal, so normal. It is okay to feel, the potatoes in the throat when I'm walking up to the stage to give a lecture in the morning, or probably wanting to, a child wanting to go to the stage, but somehow the nervousness is stopping him. Isn't it felt by all of us every day in some walk of life, whatever it could be? Now, the question is, how does it actually become so much impeding, interfering a factor? Because I said it is overwhelming. It is taking control of my body and mind. Haven't we heard of that very common neurochemical flow of, the fountains of the flight and the fright and the freeze hormones or the neurotransmitters, right? Well, it is not about the adrenaline rush alone. It's many more also. So sometimes we forget my body is responding, my mind is responding to a given challenge, which you said rightly, the fear of the unknown, the complete uncertainty of life. How do I know tomorrow in what capacity I am not vulnerable to get the COVID-19? We all are equally today. As much as we can, we are trying our best, whether it is social distancing or safety measures and taking care of our sanitation. But then we have to move on. Lockdowns alone may not be the answer, but yes, they are very important as a beginning, as the foundation for whatever prevention could be done. Now, when people are moving to their workplace, people are bringing in the family, movement in life. The education is on. The children have started going on online education. So the ends are being met simultaneously. To meet these ends on a daily basis, mainly financially, socially, relationship wise, your own sleep pattern will create a extra level of anxiety which could be overwhelming, because it is not a usual type of a routine that we are following. It is quite unusual. It is limited. It has a new foundation about the way we have to monitor ourselves on the road, on the office, in the family. So we can imagine that each one of us, I can imagine what a child would be going through. The people who are grown up, they have seen a bit of this life. They have seen a bit of this type of a problem or a challenge sometime in life. Not the pandemic, something else maybe. But what about a child who's 5, 6, 7 years confined into home for 4 months, who doesn't have a chance to go to the playground, who can't even see the rocking movements of his toys outside in the ground? All he wants is a little bit of movement here and there and naughtiness, and that's not permitted. Well, to the child, it doesn't matter what is COVID-19. It matters what is being discussed is something ghastly. What is being discussed is something very terrible in the house about a virus which kills people. So that is what goes into the child as an anxiety. And all of us together start living it. So we start living the anxiety, we start experiencing the anxiety in the physical form, in the psychological form. We'll come to that later. But in the physical form, it could be manifesting as a lot of gastrointestinal problems. It could be a thumping heartbeat, which is actually raising the systolic blood pressure. It could be causing changes in the thyroid of a person. Insomnia, complete breakdown of the sleep pattern. Restless, tossing, turning, no sleep at all. But these are not physical illnesses then. It is a mind pilfering onto the body and creating a comprehensive anxiety syndrome, the mind and body anxiety syndrome. Now, that's where the status of anxiety needs to be understood, and do not become a slave of the anxiety. Do not allow the anxiety to be the master on your life now, because it is important to evaluate, recognize, be judgmental about the fact that how best I can manage it, which will come on again. But most of them, majority of them, do not come forward to even talk in the family, I just said. And many of the cases come discussing with the psychologist or the psychiatrist at a much later stage, when these are manifested as panic attacks, maybe as complete insomnia, as probably the panic attacks going into choking sensations. So that acute, continuous, comprehensive anxiety is a stage which comes much later. But the fact that the COVID-19 period is going to create a challenge, and we all know it by now, so why wait for anxiety to become a complete disorder? Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. That would help a lot, because it's something that we all don't understand. There's another thought that has come into mind. What are the newer health issues likely to come up as a result of COVID-19? The fear of job loss, the fear of loss of the office routine. What are the newer health issues?
I think a very important part is based on the circadian rhythm of a human being, especially the adolescents and the young people, which we are coming across. We understand the day and the night cycle, the sleep and the wake cycle has taken a severe proportion of dysfunctionality. And with the world of internet and the screen time and the internet, I think people seem to be spending more than 12 hours on the net. And when we look at the netiquette, I probably call it that way since I've been hearing about it, the etiquettes related to the internet, I think it is time we introspect. Because as role models for the children, I think people in their 20s and 30s will probably lead a generation into internet addiction or internet gaming disorders. Because video gaming internet addiction, screen time addiction is going to be a huge amount of a challenge in the cyberspace. And that has a psychiatric or a psychological connotation because it will bring in neurobiological changes. It will bring in changes in the metabolism of the body of so many things like diet, the sleep factor, the exercise, and how the metabolism of the sugar and the proteins and the fats takes place. I think it is a huge challenge of dysrhythmia, I would say. The imbalance of the daily biological mechanisms, which will probably be a resultant of the lifestyles people have started living. And this by itself is another source of anxiety. One, because the person doesn't want to jeopardize the schedules and basic routine. Basic routine. I'm not even talking about a watertight compartment to be followed every day or a regimentation. I'm only talking about, say, morning, afternoon, and evening. Only 3 parts in a day. Organize yourself. It could be okay to just have a routine which is by any minimum standards a healthier one than the complete breakdown of the healthy lifestyles. So if the toning of the muscles, if the sleep in the brain, and if the dietary pattern in high carbohydrates and a lot of junk and fast food and colas, if that is what probably allows people at lockdown period to become completely fond of, I think the chances are that obesity, hypertension, diabetes, lethargy, listlessness, to some extent, psychosomatic problems like the acidity, some factors like even aches and pains. A lot of aches and pains are reported. It's very surprising to see young people in school, colleges, talking so much about the cervical pains and the shoulder pains because the posture is not changing throughout the day. Posture sitting on the couch or probably on the bed or even on the chair and being glued to the entertainment channels on the television or on the tablet. So one doesn't realize, one doesn't want to get ill, isn't it? Inadvertently, unknowingly, unintentionally, the chances are that the habits and the behavioral attitudes are leading to a lot of physical, orthopedic, maybe even neurological areas which need to be taken care. And these will start showing results a little later. And to the extent that people probably are showing a lot of deficiencies in basic vitamins like B12 or vitamin D. And of course, there are no chances to go out into the sun. But then one can take care with a lot of good supplementation and medical opinion taken from the right source. So anxiety is a complete cycle. I would say it is an ecosystem of life where things go a little out of control or out of the orbit or the radar of life. And then anxiety becomes a manifestation, sometimes not reversible. Yeah.
Right. Dr. Nagpal, well, this is for all our viewers also. We are taking a poll. In the lockdown and post it, what activities do you like to do during the day? And you can choose more than one answer. Exercise, watch TV, reading, or have you picked up a new hobby? So we're waiting to see how it gets polled and what people have to say. And Dr. Nagpal, you and I can't vote. So
okay.
We have to wait and see.
But I thought we are making efforts to be involved in one of these at least. That should be there. And surprisingly, all of these three have many more dimensions to it. It's about so many exercises, music, reading, and cooking, stitching, exercising with even gardening, talking to the plants. So many measures to deal with anxiety. I mean, it's whole plethora of activities which people can do at home only. Yep.
Right. While the poll is continuing, I think we can continue, Dr. Nagpal?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So perhaps the...
Okay.
Yeah, I've put the poll off. They will continue to...
Even talking about the...
We've got it already.
Oh, wonderful.
So we've got exercise as 70%,
That seems very
TV
good.
at
In fact,
19, which is not
yes.
bad. It's not that much. Reading is 37, and 41% picked up a new hobby. Dr. Nagpal, I think that gives us a
That's a
lot.
very innovative way to look at life ahead. I think anything new, because when we talk of the new normal, we all have come to terms with the reality that complete universal change is going to happen, Kamalji, and that universal change, we don't have to fret and fume about the change, because we should take it as a destiny, and probably the change was to the benefit of all the members in the family. I think even children would rejoice in the changes if they are related to the fundamental safety, security, and their survival. No, and I think the family as a unit is a fabulous unit in India. The springboard and the cushion, and also the the brotherhood of the safety net and the safety wall. I think no wonder we can choose more hobbies. We can actually improvise more activities at home. And uh, as far as the question about the television was concerned, I think it's not just about television. It also means about how our learning is progressing and how much we can take on news or other activities and maybe other serials and all other programs as a part of discussion in the family. Uh, Didactic discussions, group discussions, and a little bit of circle time in the family, sit around together during the meal time, and the relationship between how people could have bonded like this earlier and the newfound freedom to bond. And sometimes when we were so apprehensive to even sit in the evening time before or after the dinner is now actually by the lockdown, by compulsion, happening more often. So let's celebrate that. I think it's a moment of celebration to have so many alternate activities to discover. It's more than a job. I think it is our responsibility to get infinite potentials about our personality. I'm coming across families who are, aghast at the potential of a grandfather. A retired army officer says that, well, I can now, take my whole platoon in the family and probably celebrate the idea of leadership skills. And here is a 75-year-old plus who's actually teaching leadership skills to his teenage grandson. So where is the anxiety going to be? Anxiety will be out of the window because they'll be celebrating life. When you celebrate life, you is the pressure cooker effect. You whistle out the anxiety then. It allows the steam to be going out of the heart and soul and the mind, and you celebrate togetherness. So going by this poll, I was very tempted to share this example. And on the other hand, a lot of children are actually helping out their multitasking moms, because mothers are going through a lot of newer challenge. They always are doing the best for the family, but today they have to do the double best because everybody seems to be so lethargic to their own homework in the family. So these are very interesting anecdotal records which need to be kept as outstanding examples of coping with anxiety, because it is manifested as togetherness. And how we can support each other, they are examples of in the times to come, in the years to come, maybe after a couple of decades to come, when those little ones have grown up, they become partners with their own partners. Then they will know probably that how much parents actually, went out of the way to even spare their valuable moments for each other and for their own self to take care of the children in a special way during the COVID-19. And these
Yes,
are
very
examples
true.
we are coming across. Yeah, yeah,
Very true, Dr. Nagpal. It's coming, because we're talking of home,
yeah.
there is the flip side. When we have work from home, and it's here to
Mm.
stay, um, the how does one gives more space to each other at home so that the buildup of stress at home is reduced? And how does one try to contain irritability at lost routines within the home and compulsive sharing of everything within the home, which you may or
Mm-hmm.
may not like? And so, you would have an increasing number of, even, to the extreme, you would say domestic violence. But
Yeah, yeah,
apart from that,
absolutely.
apart from that, you even have them the daily, build up of stress and irritation. How does one cope with the other side of the stay at home phenomena?
That's very interesting and intriguing and at times even disturbing fact, Kamalji. I would rather say that the trial and the tribulation of human relationships actually is a far-fetched study that is going to be happening in the great Indian family also. And by convention, being patient, tolerant, and communicating Indian families, it is also a moment to see how the innate instinctive frustrations sometimes about the difficult times and tough times that people are going through, especially with the losses at workplace, at the business, a small time startup closing down, and those inadvertent moods which are sometimes ridiculous at times, and people may not even like it at home, can be taking the emotional cost onto anybody else in the family. So the displacement of those negative emotions, which is essentially anxiety, turning into aggression, turning into maybe gender-based violence, as you said, is not uncommon at all. I mean, in the last about 3 months, I would have come across about 8 to 10 families who are actually quite worried and maybe even panic-stricken about the passive domestic violence, if not so active. Even ignorance and neglect can be gender-based violence.
Yes.
But the dialogue is missing, the discourse about this is missing, and therefore the dignity, the honor, and the assertion of a person or more than one person in the family suffers. And I think the voice of that person who is subjected in difficult times because there are losses, there are inadequacies in reaching out to people for transactions, there are inadequacies and frustrations about not being able to, rejoice. I remember people who are probably heavily into alcohol in those regular times probably do not get so much of a chance, and those difficult emotions are probably displaced onto their spouse. And this is quite ridiculous because we saw this happening, especially when the alcohol and wine shops were opened up. There was a whole lot of hundreds of them, thousands of them, who probably spent away money like water as far as alcohol consumption was concerned, and their families reported uprise of the intoxicated behaviors, of very detestable behaviors after alcoholism, and the violence in the family, and all the stories which you often hear. So while the society moves together as a nation trying to protect mental health from dissipating or probably getting scattered in view of the COVID-19 and beyond, I think it is time to introspect on the essentials of communicating, cooperating family system, which is required to be patient and tolerant in a time when four people can join hands and say, hey, let's stand by. This will also pass. This will also go away. But it's a tough time. If one loses complete control on his personality and goes berserk with emotions onto the other person, then I think we are only creating a chaos and a crack in the system. And that is where I think public health education, which is missing grossly about mental health in India, should be brought to the forefront. Where is the gender-based violence heading for? The shaken up family has passive violence against children. Child abuse goes high. The adolescent abuse goes high. It is a cascade effect. What you said, it is not only a fact of happening, ma'am, it is I would say, another disaster at this moment, because the lack of employment or loosening of the remunerations, these are going to have a huge impact on the relationships at home. And we need to be prepared. We not only need to be prepared, we need to reach out to the public health systems to integrate the values and also the patience and tolerance, as I mentioned, without allowing anybody to be the suffering, the painstaking suffering because of anybody else's wrath and violence. And why do we say then anxiety is not there? I think people start living anxiety more than peaceful lives because they don't know what will happen to their physical health or mental health in the next moment, especially when violence is involved. So this is an area, a dark area, a gray area, which I think both in the practices and the policies, this needs to be taken up very seriously, because there has been a huge turnover of putting people to disadvantage who are more vulnerable: children, women, elderly people. the
Right.
disabled group. We need to help. We need to help our neighbors. We need to help our RWAs. We need to help our colonies in coming to terms with the altered mental health scenario, where the 150 million who need help is going up to maybe 300 million in the next few months. It will double up. But do we have the capacity? Do we have the services? Do we have the tertiary care professionals to take care? No, we have very less. So we need to take care of ourselves as a community, the public mental health systems.
True, true. Which means to say the family unit becomes critical and crucial.
Most remarkable unit. It has to be the most remarkable unit. It has always been there, but there are nuances which need to be addressed.
Right.
Like you mentioned about the example of gender-based violence, it needs to be addressed.
Right.
It should not be shrouded up in the mysteriousness of a gender.
Correct. Agreed. The other thing I also wanted to speak to you was quite often people do home remedies. All right. They would do meditation.
Yes,
yeah, they would do deep breathing to handle stress. Many of us in the entire population would, to have recourse to possibly anxiety, anti-anxiety pills or sleeping pills or other, remedies which are discussed within the home and taken. When is this, first of all, is this okay to do? And then second, when is it time to take a decision to see a mental health professional? What do you think?
Very interesting. I mean, I should appreciate you really put in deeper thought to these questions. There's no doubt that partly anxiety is something very, very biological when it happens actually perceived by a person, isn't it? Now, जिसको हम कहते हैं कि घबराहट है, बेचैनी है, दहशत है और कहीं ना कहीं नर्वसनेस है बहुत और अपने आप से ऐसी फीलिंग हो रही है कि हम आउट ऑफ कंट्रोल हो रहे हैं, हम अपने आप को एक्सेसिव वरी में रखे हुए हैं, बहुत चिंता है, हर बात की बहुत चिंता हो रही है कि कैसे होगा, घर संसार कैसे चलेगा, नौकरी कैसे चलेगी, बाहर रोड पे हम सेफ कैसे रहेंगे, fear of dying, fear of uncertainty, and so one starts actually conditioning the thinking brain with the emotional brain. To make it very simple, we have an emotional brain, we have a thinking brain, and we have the survival brain on which we survive, which takes care of our heartbeat, the blood pressure, and the other parameters of survival, the breathing, But what happens to the thinking brain if it is overwhelmed, if it is overcast by the emotional spectrum of feelings, which are all about here and now anxiety? Then the rational mind doesn't work. The person might be impulsive, the person might be reactive, the person might be aggressive. So what happens when we are reactive or probably impulsive? Smoking, alcohol, drugs. In anxious people, in people who have a symptom of anxiety, probably the substance abuse goes up. Rash driving might go up. The focused approach to work might actually become a deterrent. Not able to not be able to pay attention or concentration. The very common complaint, easily distractible. So when in the office, because of the anxiety of how to run the home in the evening and so many demands coming from home, the people in the office start noting, hey, you're not able to focus, you're not working properly. What is wrong with you? Hey, I'm anxious, I'm preoccupied. So anxiety is not just one about nervousness and feeling the ghabrahat, becheni, or I told you, ek dahshat ki feeling utna hi nahi hai. It starts affecting the entire ecosystem of the person. That is why remedies which are biological in nature, I appreciate that India is proud to have a lot of Ayurvedic remedies to improve the immunity also, to even help the mental health status. Why not? I mean, I'm not the right person to be pronouncing so many of them, but as simple as Chyawanprash also, why not? I mean, that's something which we have been getting since childhood. And I feel that it is a combination of so many herbal makes which actually help us to remain a little calm and composed. Essentially, the brain and the mind need to work together. Mind is the manifestation of the human brain. Mind is the abstract of the human brain. It is the thinking, emotion, and the behavior. But that needs to be targeted at the human nerves in the brain. If the nerves are overreacting, they're retching and they're probably crying away like a fountain, then I think the mind will obviously go haywire. It will go berserk. So to keep the nerves calm, remember, do have a doctor's opinion. Do not self-medicate. We often feel that an anti-anxiety pill or a sleeping pill or a painkiller might do its job, and we probably pop in like maybe popping in the poppins or the chewing gum or whatever. The idea is that do not do that, because we will not know what might actually lead to more addiction, what might lead to more anxiety. Remember, the sleeping pills, when not available, are much, much higher in the levels of anxiety. The craving and the withdrawal is much higher as an anxiety, as a disorder, than the anxiety which originally was, and you took the pill for it. So sometimes the absence of the medication can cause a bigger disorder of anxiety than the need for it. So do not medicate unless you have a professional medical opinion, either from a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a physician, your GP, your family physician. So any tablet for sleep or anxiety, do consult. But yes, they are there. They are well researched. The world has seen a good amount of very less addictive medication to keep the nerves a little calmer, to help you to organize your timetable a little better, so that you are well versed with your diet, sleep, exercise, your deep breathing exercises. Even sitting like this when we are talking, I think just 3 to 4 seconds of deep breathing through the nose, holding back for about 2 3 seconds, and then exhaling it out from the mouth. Now, these are exercises which are so many available. You know, the 1 minute relaxation, the 30-second relaxation. But what's common in that? A good amount of breathing. Because oxygen taken surplus luxuriously, well, we don't have to pay tax for the air, no? Luxuriously taken oxygen, luxuriously taken air, and with a great amount of stretching, which we do early in the morning, while not on the chair sitting in the office. Now, Kamalji is there sitting. I'm sure after this dialogue is over, it'll be very nice to stretch ourselves. The muscles need a little break. The lungs need a little friendliness, because lungs are our companions, no? We need to take care of our companions, the lungs. They can take about liters of, many, many liters of air if I breathe properly and breathe heartily and celebrate breathing. If I celebrate with breathing, then I'm controlling my anxiety. The issue is that in anxiety, we are so economical about breathing. We feel that if I breathe leisurely, something might happen to my heart. But that is the misconception. In anxiety, the most important requirement is breathe well, breathe steady, and breathe a lot. The deep, the long, and the silent breathing as a culture in life controls your anxiety. It not only controls your anxiety, it gives you the self-esteem and the self-confidence to feel good about yourself. So remember, extra oxygen and extra breath and the breathing exercise, whatever you're doing, wherever you're doing, even while driving or traveling, but be a good, deep, long breather. Don't allow the lungs to choke because you don't allow the air to go in because of your anxiety. You don't have to go into a Padma Asana to breathe well. Well, yoga is very important. Meditation is extremely good. You know, whatever the Indian systems tell us. But celebrate the idea that you are a yogi yourself. The special senses are given to us by God, and we have to take care of our lungs, and the air is free of cost. We don't have to pay tax. So we allow the breathing to be very good. That itself, one is enough to take care of the minimum difficulties in our anxiety as a symptom, which I was mentioning. Then, of course, there are more exercises which yoga can teach you, meditation can teach you, and then the diversion, as ma'am was saying, diversion into hobbies, interests, participation with family, involved. Amount of change, which actually a lot of people are finding it very interesting and very amusing in the lockdown period. The bonds are being made for the first time between people who probably thought that I would never bond. And those people are celebrating the idea that, wow, me talking to my teenager talking to dad, that's a celebration. It never happened because we probably never had time. So I think these are the very specific changes that seem to be bringing in a lot of positive manifestation, controlling the anxiety.
Dr. Nagpal,
Yes, ma'am.
I want to also ask you a few more questions here, which I have ready for you. Yeah. Uh, what kinds of anxiety are there? There's a famous saying that says, "Ye khushi ke aasu hain." All right. So that is good anxiety. But anxiety can be two types of behavior. One would be, a behavior where you lose interest and become lethargic, or the extreme opposite, which would be workaholic or compulsive in behavior pattern. Are there different ways of coping with different types of anxiety?
Well, the manifestation of anxiety, जिसको आप basically ये भी कह सकते हैं, एक feeling of nervousness and fear and apprehension है, that may be manifesting in a generalized form. There are instances where people are feeling this anxiety throughout the day, and sometimes they are unable to even find moments or couple of hours without that anxiety. So continuously on the difficult part of being on the edge. They say that it's almost like living life with anxiety. That is one, and then there are other problems which probably may not be in the purview right now, but panic. I told you the panic attack, the obsessive compulsive disorders, which are a huge challenge to the universal approach to mental health. I think constant, repetitive, recurrent thoughts, which are about maybe cleaning or checking or doing away with contamination, dressing, counting. Now these are obsessions. These are repetitive thoughts which probably keep intruding despite all the efforts made to remove them, and they may manifest in certain compulsions. Underlying problem is the anxiety. Underlying problem in a panic attack, which is acute intense anxiety at the nick of a time when it's like taking a flight. There are people who've actually off-boarded. They have come out of the plane because they just couldn't manage the panic attack. There are people who've not traveled into an elevator and probably had to stop the elevator en route. The claustrophobias and the other phobias. Well, that's a different, shadows of anxiety. But I agree with you that panic attack, OCD, and to some extent even PTSD. Now, post-traumatic stress, the trauma of a chronic, unremitting disaster like the COVID-19 is likely to build up a post-trauma syndrome maybe months or a couple of years down the line. The people who are in a state, and most of us are, by the way, we probably are in an alternate reality, or we would say that probably I wouldn't call it an augmented reality, but an alternate reality. We are in an alternate reality. We're just trying to cope up, survival instinct, and probably just trying to make the world around us equipped enough to survive and move on and take care of the loved ones. But maybe after all this is over, and you look back, there are flashbacks. What has happened? Oh, so much of loss. I couldn't regain. There's no chance to even calculate the loss right now because it is about move ahead and survive. Like somebody said rightly, when questioned that, what do we do in 2020? And the answer was, stay alive. Just stay alive and celebrate that you are there, isn't it? So I think if the avoidance of anxiety is the goal, then I think we work on a less impulsive lifestyle, a less extravagant lifestyle, and probably with the minimalistic things, celebrate emotions with each other and not celebrate only the haves and the have-nots with each other. The connections between the soulful living together, the heartful living together are the wealthiest of the people, and probably the lesson learnt is probably would be the wealthiest of the nations. Just like the Bhutan government spoke about the gross national happiness. Why not create a gross Indian happy family by not too many things around us, but too many good emotions around with each other? Sharing and caring and celebrating, no anxiety factor would be then interfering. So as you said, PTSD, panic attack, OCD are some of the examples commonly seen as varieties of anxiety as a problem, including the generalized anxiety, which I mentioned. Right.
Right.
And we should all seek help. We should all seek help if all this is happening. And sometimes self-medication should never be taken. And sometimes even if a opinion on this is not helping, it would be wise to get them evaluated, because certain symptoms, certain problems can be part of a personality also. It need not be because of the COVID-19 lockdown, the phobia about the unknown, the fear about the dying. It could be just a uprising of the personality that was previously there. And it needs a attention, addressal, and some degree of a remediation with help from a psychologist, a little bit of a counseling, lifestyle modification, timetable of life daily, and being in touch and love with nature. I think nature is the biggest healer at the moment during the COVID-19.
Right, right. The last question here before we take some of the answers, the questions from the audience, yeah, would be, physical health today on social media and everywhere, fitness, physical fitness is now the thing. But the focus on mental and emotional fitness is where, really not into perspective. How does one keep in good shape when one talks about mental well-being? How does one keep in good shape, Dr. Nagpal?
Well, one can not even bother to remain in good shape. One can bother to remain in a healthy shape. We don't know what is good and bad and ugly anymore. We talk about healthy, less healthy, or no healthy.
Okay.
And I think even when you talk to the children and the teenagers, probably it would be sermonizing them, tell them, hey, this is good and this is bad. They'll say, hey, are you following it? I think the first target is parents. Okay, we need to be role models for each other. How dad handles his anxiety about his loss at the workplace and probably the job being threatened is also a role model for the child to handle his education, no? Because we model on our elders. And probably if we find that role modeling is a bit shaky and we're not able to cope up with the anxieties of day-to-day losses and difficulties and challenges, then probably the 21st century skills which are required to thrive and survive and probably take the life on with a matter of success, there are paradigms which are going to change. There is going to be a whole paradigm shift between the idea of success today and the success tomorrow. It probably could be that, okay, a person who does not have to regularly visit hospitals or probably meet his family doctor very often is probably the most successful person, because the paradigm will change.
Yeah.
It may not be the bank balance which will define success. It could be the number of times a person can laugh in a day would be the matter of a successful person. So how many times did I laugh today? How many times did I smile at the people who are lesser privileged? Could be the driver, could be the maid, and could be the guard at my home place, or could be the vendor who comes to deliver so many things at home. Did I even smile at him? I think these are moments which probably we will start cherishing now as a happy community, and anxiety would be certainly less. So as you said, while we look at this as a phenomenal change in our perception of reality, I think anxiety as a coping mechanism should be seen as a holistic input. One remedy is not enough. There is no single remedy for an anxiety disorder when it is overwhelming me. It is important to bring in a change in the 24-hour life cycle, what I said. And why you alone? I always tell individuals that, hey, listen, where is your family? Get them also. Because the entire system has to change for a person who is suffering more anxiety than the others. The partnership, the involvement, the engagement, the time, the personalized attention, the addressal of the difficulty, the sharing, the ventilation, the catharsis of that anxiety. I think it is a partnership between people. And nobody here is a patient. The more important is how we deal, because I think people who don't realize that somebody needs help are the people who actually need help. Yes, because इनको problem है, इनसे problem है. If those things are left aside and say, hey, listen, ये हमारी problem है. We need to help our boy, girl, husband, wife, or grandfather, and then take it forward. Take it forward because it is our onus as a mutual family living together, and togetherness is a celebration. When the difficulty arises, then the most difficult task is who's going to bell the cat. If the person who is suffering, he has to find a way out alone, I'm sure the anxiety is going to multiply into a bigger disorder. So help is the 4-letter word, but you have to create 4 oceans out of it. Because go ahead, talk to the person, allow that person to even meet a third party. Sometimes it could be very difficult to even share with the family what is causing an acute anxiety. We are always opting for a denial, for maybe a some degree of displacement into something else, so that we don't sometimes trouble the people who matter most, or we don't want to tell them. But here is where a trust build up should be there, because don't ignore it. Move forward, help the person by a lot of personal time spent, and maybe given that moment of secrecy and trust. I think here is where a lot of anxiety I've seen. People do not have to even visit doctors or take any pills or take any medical help. It is sorted out between the people who know you best, and do not hesitate to share with them. One word, one phrase, and one sentence is a call away. Just pick up and say, hey, I need to share with you something. Could you help me? And the answer should be, I'll leave everything and just come to you. I feel that is the biggest medicine. And one, I told you already, that happiness and laughter is a medicine. Why not, if it is created by the people who matter for us?
Thank you. Thank you. That's on a very heartening note. I have, out of the many questions, I'm picking up 3, and we will quickly go through them. One is a very simple one. If one has anxiety issue and gets some very good news, is it possible that it will increase the anxiety instead, and you don't feel happiness of that news at all? What do you feel?
Well, let me tell you from a neurobiological point of view. If the news is a good news and it makes a difference to your life in the future, because maybe you prayed for somebody and that good news happened to that person, and maybe that good news was for you, it is proven beyond doubt that happiness factor, or the HQ, it has a neurochemical basis. So you might actually help your brain to counter the chemicals which were causing and sustaining the anxiety, the negative anxiety, the difficult anxiety. Anxiety as the problem. So when maybe the oxytocin or the dopamine and the serotonin start becoming your friends because of happiness and good news, they actually will be the soldiers to remove out those, the filters in the brain, the conditioning filters in the brain, which are actually maintaining the negative anxiety. No wonder I said that smiling, laughter, sharing and caring, and those little moments of togetherness, the love and the affection, unconditional positive regard, they actually create happy chemicals in the brain. It is not just the mind, by the way. It is not just a feeling. The feeling influences the neuroplasticity, which is about the changing flexibility of the brain to adapt. So you're seeking. Next time, seek a good news. Don't wait for it. Go and seek a good news. And seeking a good news may be sounding paradoxical, but no harm. What is the harm in seeking good news? Seeking good news could be going to a neighboring uncle and ask him, hey, you seem to be happy. Are you happy? And the uncle will tell you that I'm very happy. That's good news, isn't it? So seek a good news. Go and find out where I can find a good news. You don't have to wait for it to come as your good news. And I'm sure you will be a master of celebrating certain happy chemicals in the brain. Like we have the endorphins which come out racing when you are actually on the treadmill or walking or jogging or skipping. You have the endogenous morphine created by God inside the brain. It gives you so many opiate-like feelings. But don't start taking opium, by the way. Huh? But you can actually start having the natural opium in the brain, the endorphins, which help you to celebrate happiness. And that's possible when we give, like I remember many great sportsperson telling us, we should sweat out once in a day, sweat it out. I know going out to the racing track or the park is very difficult nowadays, but you can do those exercise in the balcony, in the backyard, in the nearby park. We take all your measures of safety, the mask and everything, but sweat it out. दिन में एक बार पसीना छूटना और दिन में एक बार कम से कम 400 मीटर भागना कभी भी मौका मिले. It is said that about 30 minutes morning to evening, either morning or evening, go, run, jog, skip, whatever you want to do. But the physical toning of the muscles improves the happiness in the brain. How many sports people we have come across who perennially seem to be depressed? I have not come across anybody. The people who are actively into sports actually are the best counselors, I thought. They help us to live life in love with nature. That is why they are there. They are there outside with the nature. So let us be a sports person with a sporting spirit. One for the people who matter and one for our own self. Be selfish about your own smiles and your own celebration. It is the first factor of loving somebody else. Be proud to be what you are. Be proud to be an evaluator of your own emotions. Recognize them. If you find difficult, don't keep it to yourself. Share them. That is a remedy.
Thank you.
And we always will have people to share with us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's absolutely excellent. I have one more question here, two more as a matter of fact. How does one bring positivity and remove fear in a child? Because children are unable to play with their friends and they can't meet their relatives, and it's very disturbing for them.
The technology is doing a wonderful job with us. I understand, I appreciate that we all are probably victims of that confinement, very less social mobility. Of course, no parties and no functions and no occasions. But then nonetheless, I think since the social media has given us a great opportunity to even be visible on the phone calls, I think we should take advantage of connecting. The connection today is more important than where and what is the means to that connection. I think if you can even talk to the most favorite people in your list of friends or relatives, I think daily it is very important to be in touch with them. That reciprocal social behavior, we, by virtue of celebrating safety, by the safety norms, I don't think we can actually very often go and meet people or travel. And if you travel outside the city, then you have to undergo a quarantine. If you travel within the city, you're carrying a risk also. But you will be carrying a risk for whatever reason. So I suggest that children can be very bored, very monotonous about the situation. But yes, we have to find ways and means of diversifying them into so many indoor games which are creative, innovative, and also participatory, not just educational. I've seen people, families doing role plays and nukkad natak with the small children involved. They're doing fancy dress with the small children. There are children who are modeling at home, and the family is helping them, watching them, appreciating them, and creating a small auditorium in the drawing room or the dining hall. And they're actually celebrating the child's talent, the talent hunt at home, not only in the Indian Idol. They're sitting at home and actually celebrating with karaoke, innumerable songs. We have seen so many families, members becoming great singers during the lockdown because there are hidden talents and the inhibitions which came off. So why not children? Children have a lovely sense of self. Do you know that a child loves himself so much? That is a charm of the Adonis. The mirror is my best friend at that time. The mirror will tell me the truth. Okay, listen, smile and play and do mischief. Let them. Mistakes are bound to happen because they are children. If childhood didn't have mistakes, then we will not be celebrating childhood. So let them do that, but be appreciating. Their self-esteem is in your hand. Whatever they do, whatever they create, whatever they participate, it is worth clapping, appreciating, celebrating. A small drawing by a child, take my word, even a mountain and a bird which look of the same size, though they are not, actually should be a celebration and stuck up on the flannel board at home for 1 week. And people who come and go and say, hey, listen, this is what Rahul made as a great bird flying across the Himalayas in the lockdown period. And I've seen this happening. Music. There are youngsters as old as even 6 years, 7 years. On the online, they're learning piano, Casio. What a fabulous way to become a good musician without a teacher, because internet is a teacher. You can learn guitar. You can actually learn guitar on the net. So who stops you? You can learn tabla on the net. So music, fine arts, performing art, nukkad natak, role play are elements of even helping the special need children to be involved. You know that every special need child, a child who's a slow learner or an autistic child or maybe a cerebral palsy child, I've seen mothers going out of the way to ensure that these children also celebrate moments together. They don't know what they suffer from, but they know that you smile at them, you involve them, you engage them, and that is why they love you for it. So do that. I don't think any time would be less if people start actually making a list of things which they can actually celebrate together in order to manage anxiety, which is causing a sense of insecurity and a sense of low self-esteem. And no wonder, I think when we discuss later, depression and anxiety start going together. Depression and anxiety start manifesting each other because they start diverting to each other.
Right.
Unchecked anxiety and maybe unchecked depression both can actually create a lot of problems, and they often manifest each other because they were not corrected or they're not remedied. So
Right.
our social environment, our social, the climate within the family, and maybe whatever help we can get from our school teachers, our university professors, our comrades and crusaders who are well known to us, I think we should take help from them. We should help them also and celebrate humanity. A lot of changes in anxiety, more than 80% will be manageable, provided we know what and what time with whom to actually share and be cared for.
Right. Dr. Nagpal, one quick answer for one last question.
Yeah.
There is a question here saying how to cope with anxiety caused by the fear of missing out by not being able to earn as much or he or she used to, and losing to the time that has gone by and they're not able to get it.
See, it is two things are very important. I'm happy as far as I can understand that you have a job going on, I know, but the adequacy of whatever is coming through is not enough for a good livelihood, isn't it? Well, I'm not asking you to pay heed to those 25 plus million who don't have a job now, but I'm do asking you, I'm definitely requesting you to make an effort to even cut down expenses. We need to do that. We need to cut down our own expenses in the bargain for some things which were negotiable earlier, but we didn't realize that they were negotiable. So people are actually starting living on the minimum and celebrating the maximum emotions. So we have come across people who are saying that, hey, I didn't realize that this much was enough as a requirement for my healthy, balanced diet, my clothing, and my shelter. And even few hours of remaining at home without the air conditioner seems to be the beautiful experience of the nature. A monsoon period, enjoying the breezy, sitting under the tree outside the home rather than packed in the room with the air conditioner throughout the day. So these are few experiences we are hearing, and I feel that people are not only turning to be more responsible towards nature and for the love of nature, but also for each other's help in terms of minimizing those moments where a lot of economical crisis used to happen. Today we are at a crisis point because people who are not having anything to bank upon, it is a miserable situation for them. But when we have something, please rationalize it. Please discuss it with your family or spouse. Please minimize the unwanted expenditures. Be a little bit careful about savings. Be a little bit more economical about certain areas which can be postponed tomorrow for the better times to come. I'm sure in the means and to the end of it, we shall be celebrating what is more important today is about being together and bonding with no anxiety or anxiety that is manageable. But yes, I think economical conditions are universal. Whatever it may be, we should go on making the effort to make it better. If it is not better, at least maintain what we have.
Right. One more has come in. And this is really the last one. Is any tip
Sure.
for teenagers?
Well, teenagers are a very busy lot. They are the busiest people. They have so much to grapple from the social media, so much to learn from the school, and probably very less time to talk to parents. So I only request them. The adolescents of India are a huge population of nearly 25% and 35 crores of young people. And the adolescent is from the 10 years to the 19 years. The charm and the challenge of being a teenager or an adolescent, I think take out time to be a leader in the family. You be the leader. You help your dad and mom and the grandparents to involve, engage, and participate in something which you love to do. Nobody will say no. And if you be a little firm, I'm sure they'll all line up to you. Second, do not expect so much to be carried out by parents, because you see, my only humble submission is let us have that, जिसको कहते हैं ना एक विनम्रता और संवेदना जो होती है, वो माँ बाप के लिए रखनी बहुत जरूरी है. I was addressing a lot of school parents today itself, and regularly I'm addressing parents in the schools. And I find that there are millions of them who will be going to the workplace now, including moms also. Why? To meet the ends, which has been a little difficult time for the flow of money, the flow of finances. So when they're doing their bit so that we may be happy as children, as teenagers. I think we need to do our bit for the patting, for the self-esteem, for the clapping of the mother and the father. I think this is a moment where patience and a little bit of a tolerance from your side as a teenager will go a long way to make family life a happy, healthy, and a harmonious life. In the meanwhile, if you feel they need to give you more time, they need to sit with you, they need to understand what your gangs are like, which if you want to tell them, you want to tell them how your friends, you need to talk to them, be on the social media. I don't think there's anything wrong. As far as we are not crossing the boundaries of cyberspace, maybe cyberbullying or cyber violation, please be a little bit more responsible. Please enjoy life. It is meant for you. And also academically, whatever best the teachers are doing, I think what the teachers are doing today is phenomenal. It is a warrior, an educational warrior is a teacher and a principal. They're doing their best to come to every home through the online classes, and we should cooperate with them. So all I can suggest is, while you do your bit, enjoy your life, be with your friends online. Do not get addicted to games and do not get addicted to online medium. Celebrate time with the parents and the reverence for the teachers. Nobody will say no to you. You have all the right to demand the attention you need to get.
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nagpal. This has been an amazing session. And we look forward. I will then communicate to everybody when the next session is, which should be in the next 15 days. And we will tell you in advance what the subject matter is so that everybody can tune in. And in the meantime, I'd like to say a very big thank you first to Dr. Nagpal. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and being able to help so many thousands and thousands of people who have a need, to get a helping hand, just to be able to, some little stumbling blocks, and they can manage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So thank you so much. And thank you to all our viewers. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we will keep you informed of the next series in the series and the subject matter. Thank you, Dr. Nagpal. Thanks again.
Thank you, Kamalji. It was a great experience, and always celebrate mind and mental health. Never feel shy to bring forward any difficulty, because it's your difficulty. It is somebody else's difficulty also.
Right.
Unless we share, how will we grow? That's my mantra for the day.
Great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye, bye.